Don't forget to like and subscribe before you do start this video. See you right now. Shower, wet hair, shower. Ashton here, servicing animation information, and today we'll be reviewing the anime Mushoku Tensei. Mushoku Tensei is a 2-season, 23-episode series written by Rufujin Namaganote and animated by Studio Bind. The story follows a young 14-year-old Rudius Grey Rat, or Rudy for short. The Rudius show, or Mushoku Tensei, is actually revolving around Rudius Grey Rat. He is reincarnated, as this show is an isekai, as this show revolves all around Rudius, his adventures, his life, his series context, going to one place to another, meeting new people, finding new places, adventures, guilds, quests, parents, family, struggles, the isekai formula. Beautiful show, beautiful animation. The story follows young Rudy with his dad, mom, servant, and eventually more siblings that come along the way between his mom and his servant. His dad gets mixed up in a lot of these affairs and likes to have a lot of...
レッドフードコブラだ。まさかこの森に出るとは。
こいつが謎の魔物ってことですか？
みたいだな。あの魔物は強い。奴らでは歯が立たなかっただろう。
早く助けなきゃ死んじゃうわよ。どうすんのよ。
いけますか？
問題ない。
今度は助けましょう。
So, as Rudius does tend to grow and he's learning more of his powers and his own understanding of himself and the people around him, he starts to venture out on these adventures that he meets many people along the way, including some family members. As Rudius does grow, a lot of people are wanting Rudy to grow as a person in himself. For example, his father is sending him away to a faraway kingdom to go meet Eris, who eventually ventures out with Rudy along with some other people. You've got Ruijerd, who has a gem with green hair on his head, who his former master had told him to stay away from. This show would like to really focus in on what is right in front of Rudius. In fact, it's very story driven. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 based, very formulaic for the story that it's trying to convey. You get a lot of perspective from Rudius himself, from his past life and how that affects to the decisions and ideas that he has for his new future life as of today. A lot of interactions with him and the god that brought him to this world to begin with, and a lot of just his perspective for how he feels about certain people. He's a very understanding, open-minded person, seeking good in other people with a more of chaotic, good friendliness that he's always conveying to other people, whether it's from Ruijerd himself or Eris, who's super mean to him as soon as he gets to meet her, or even some other person that he meets along the way who ends up beating the mess out of Rudy himself. But regardless of that, Rudy is a good person. He has good hearts, good ideas, good focuses to who is right in front of him at that very moment in time. Very perceptive, very idealistic, yet always seeing the good in people and looking to further benefit himself, his storyline, and everybody else around him. Ultimately, this is what kind of hurts Rudy in the long run. He gets very attached to people as he's so kind and gentle. He gets burned out from people who come and go in his life, and I think as an isekai and the way the ideas are conveyed about Rudy, he is learning to fend for himself. He's so concerned with other people acknowledge this, and he can't take it when people just leave him, making him that good of a character. The show itself is really focused and consistent with good music, very top-notch animation to follow along with it, and really good story development and character development to kind of push Rudy to his next limits. In fact, you're given multiple stories within this one big old world, a lot of context for each character, and you're not given too much backdrop. You're giving a lot more of the in person, what's right in front of you, what's coming up next, a lot of observing moments that you can get from Rudy and why he makes the decisions he does today. Even more so, it's like you can understand the decisions he's making and it does a very good job of explaining that accordingly. To follow up on that thought, that's where the issues do kind of run along just a little bit. In fact, I think it's a little bit too convenient for Rudy at times. I mean, sure, he gets advice from this person who gave him a whole nother life, who's giving him more than what he could have asked for, but to be so convenient for Rudius's sake really, I believe, does hurt the story. Whenever you're giving these more impactful moments, or these moments that are just really peaking out, it doesn't peak out as much as it could just because of how convenient the story is. So much so, I actually look forward to the struggle that Rudy does find within his day-to-day activities, or within the things that he's seeking for, or he finds within each other town. And whenever you do get those antagonists that do bring up their own personal character, it's like it's not enough to really convince me that Rudy is actually dealing with these problems rather than these problems kind of solving themselves. Sure, he's a great talker, and sure, he's a great character, and he's very, very kind, but some of that kindness can sometimes come across as naiveness, and I don't think he is, but more struggle, more problems. It's like it's too convenient to the plot, and it's too convenient for Rudy. Again, I get that this person who brought him to another world gave him this kind of power and convenience, but for Ikasai's sake, it's just way too convenient for not to have this much struggle, especially for how serious the show takes itself. There's a lot of good music, as I said, a lot of piano pieces that really do soften the mood, and a lot of do struggles whenever it does happen, fight scenes, fight music, and it's like blaring in your ears who's winning and who's losing. And when you're given a lot of this good stuff to kind of flow within the series itself, it always constantly reminds you after everything peaks out and it's just kind of tension released, how a little bit algorithmic it is and how formulaic the show kind of does tend to be. I do like it when my expectations are violated and you just see the unseen happen right before your eyes. And when you're given a lot of development that's kind of known and you know you're looking forward to it, you miss out on the peaks, the how high does it really reach in intensity, from Rudius actually being a part of his family, Rudius being trapped in a cell, or Rudius being trapped in this other cell, or Rudius being trapped in a barrier. It's like you've seen it a little bit before, and you want more struggle so that Rudius can find his own ways and his own interpretation to really get the max skill and development that he has developed throughout this childhood. Yes, he's very strong and very powerful. But again, because of the convenience, because of the storyline, and because of how convenient everything falls in place for him, it's like you miss out on what Rudius is really made of at times. In fact, so much so, I don't really think there's a part where Rudius has actually used a lot of his powers or a lot of his own personal fights that he's been able to take a part of. You see a lot of Eris, you see a lot of Ruijerd, you see a lot of other people fighting around Rudius. I just wish that there was more from Rudius himself so we could watch more fights. Sure, the lights are fun and the spells are powerful and he's got a ton of mana, but you want more from Rudy to peek out who he is as a mage. Besides the long montages that come around with Rudius or other people that show their training, there's one thing that really just bugs the mess out of me, and it's the comedy side of it. I get that it is a funny show and it does tend to have a lot of humor that comes from Rudy and the ploy that they develop within these sexual characters. I understand that there is a lot to be said about the opposite sex, especially from Rudy's perspective, but whenever you feel like everybody is being violated in one way or another sexually, it tends to get a bit repetitive. The first 2 or 3 sex jokes that come in, or even jokes that come in from the past that do relay back in the future whenever Rudius has grown up a little bit, it really does play out very well. But the times where it just feels like insert joke here and then it's just place sex joke, it's a bit too much. It really does make me feel really uncomfortable. I can understand the time frame and the ideas and the development that comes with it, especially it being more of like a storytelling side with mages, guilds. There's just a lot more that could be done if you just take out the jokes, if you take out the sexuality and you put in more of Rudius, more of what he's doing and the actions that he takes and the decisions he makes. Because in my opinion, most isekais that do come out to flourish are really the ones that show more of the main character, that show how good a main character can be, how good they can develop, and how good they can capture themselves in this world versus where they were or who they are. Hence, And that's where it really does play in. One of the hardest parts that this show is trying to convey is the comedy and the drama side of things. I feel as the show does go on a little bit later, the story writing really does take a turn to focus more on the story itself and less on the comedic effects, which why the comedy lasted for 10 plus shows in some cases, I couldn't tell you, but I can tell you that it just needed to lay off just a bit. So much so that it feels like almost females are servicing just the show themselves without actually having real meaning. For example, you're giving Eris, who is constantly perverted on, you're giving Rudy's master, who is constantly perverted on, you're giving some obsessive ideas where they really do show how obsessive they are with just sexuality in general, and the fan service is just, it's like, it's not blatant, but it's there, and it's a little too much. It's on like 11 when it needs to be on like maybe 6 or 5. Fan service is okay, the audience gets it, but when you just blatantly put it in their face over and over and over again, ugh. That being said, this isekai does a really good job of just laying the foundation of what an isekai is, the ideas that are building upon Rudy, everyone around him, a really good job at story building. You get to see many characters multiple times, and though the plot is convenient to Rudy, it's an enjoyable plot. It's a very comfortable story, very comfortable story writing. You're not doing a lot with so little. In fact, I think that this goes to beyond even the animation itself and more of just how good the story can be. It's just, I mean, Rudy says it himself when speaking to his father, even during these really tense moments, how easy and convenient it's been for him. And honestly, I feel that it's very true, making the story a bit uninteresting at times. I enjoyed it. This show is made for a specific audience. It is not made for the average general sight-seeking anime lover. It's made for someone who is into these stories, who really does feel like they're a part of the story, as I did, and really wants to envelop themselves in Rudy. I feel like it's really good, and the ideas that it does come across just a bit repetitive sometimes. I really look forward to at least season 3. I think there's going to be good things, and I think they're going to develop past the sexual jokes and past Rudy's youthfulness and really give a more upbeat, tenseful, matured show as I look forward to it. And yeah, 6+. Not much to be said. It's a really good show, and it really strives to be. Not so good whenever it tries to be a bit too comfortable. Take a bit more risks. Don't remind yourselves of why you need to make a show so fan service based, but really put in the effort to just show more tensity, more vibrantness, and more conjecture between a lot of people within this show. There's really good chemistry between Rudy and his father. Really, really good chemistry between Rudy and Eris, and a lot of good chemistry that's untold between Ruijerd and Rudy. But for some reason, I can only get a lot more sexualized fan service in my head because it's like the first 10 episodes, that's what I'm trained to remember. I mean, it's funny when it needs to be funny, but the times it's not, just needs to slow down. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Cisco Bang. I hope you did enjoy this review, and I hope you do get to watch more shows like these. I do understand isekais are a big deal, and I need to go watch Eminence of Shadows, as everyone is telling me to. Don't worry, it's coming. There's a lot more I need to watch, but Eminence of Shadows is on the list. As always, Ashton, Cisco Bang, the Rudy show, Mushoku Tensei, forever. Go watch it. Go read some anime. Go watch some anime. Go read some manga. Go read some subtitles. And we will see you in the next review. See you later. Ooh, there's a lot to be said about this show. Wow.